If you were to choose between a sport invented by bored millionaires on a yacht or one that's actually fun and playable for everyone, you would probably go for the second option. Lucky for you, paddle somehow ticks both boxes. So, how did we get here? Well, it all started when someone decided tennis just didn't have enough bounce or banter, so he threw in some walls, made the court smaller, and boom, paddle was born. The history of the game can be traced back to some rather odd earlier racket sports like platform tennis, which kicked off in the States during the 1920s. Just think about this. People playing on raised platforms in the winter with heaters under the floor to melt the snow. Sounds like a health and safety nightmare, doesn't it? Like paddle, they used solid paddles and had a net around the court, but their ball was more of a squishy rubber thing, and the court was a different size. These odd elements might have given paddle some of its vibe, just tweaked for warmer weather and fewer frostbite risks. A Mexican businessman, Enrique Corcuera, set up the first ever paddle court at his holiday home in Acapulco in 1969, but the story starts a bit earlier than that. Back in the 19th century, bored passengers on British cruise ships were knocking balls around with tennis rackets in a game that sort of resembled paddle. Being inspired by what he just did, Corcuera thought, I can do better, and turned a patch of his land in Acapulco into a mini court 20 meters by 10 meters with walls on the sides to stop the jungle from taking over and to keep the balls from flying into his neighbor's garden. Back then, no one could have guessed that Corcuera's little backyard game would turn into a full-blown sport. But what's very interesting about this sport is how easy it is to start playing right away.
You can get a game going, you can get a rally going, it's a little bit easier to start, for sure.
It's extremely fun. It's easy to pick up. And like I said, I mean, when I'm in the court, I'm coaching a beginner. Within half an hour, they're playing paddle. They're having a great time. I mean, they're really enjoying the game. Where in tennis, for you just to keep the ball inside the court, it will take you a long time.
Definitely.
It's
definitely,
it's interesting.
Now, you might be wondering why the game is more prominent in Spain than any other country. That's right, you can thank Enrique Corcuera for that too. During the summer, he invited his posh mates over to his court at Las Brisas. One of those people just happened to be the Prince Alfonso de Hohenlohe-Langenburg. This prince also happened to be a real estate developer and the guy behind the Marbella club.
He made a little design to his builders. He designed so well that he put a lot of shadow on the left and on the right side of the walls of the net where the net should have been. When he came back, suddenly there were walls there. And then he said to me, what do we do now? And I said, let's try it. I mean, you cannot just throw the walls away.
In 1974, after a few too many rallies, he decided to take paddle back to Spain, building 2 courts at his posh hotel club on the Costa del Sol. But instead of sidewalls, he went for wire fences? I wonder what his kid would think of this.
Father would be very proud that paddle is growing so much. But I think in a way that people are having fun and are kind of socializing. And that's why we're doing also this club and this concept that people are able to play in all walks of life. A game that has developed in the right direction, socializing, fun, and everybody can play.
Sounds proud, doesn't he? Well, from 1980 to 1990, the Marbella club courts were buzzing with pro-am tournaments sponsored by Smith & Smith stores. Julio Alegre Artiach, the guy who owned the stores and would later become the first president of the International Paddle Federation in 1991, was crucial in setting the official rules of paddle worldwide. So, basically, without him, we would all still be arguing about what counts as in or out. All this while the game was still not considered a sport at the international level. Spanish entrepreneur Alfonso de Hohenlohe, who happened to be Enrique Corcuera's friend, was pretty much the guy responsible for turning paddle into an international sport. In 1974, while on a trip to Mexico,
that cute guy's been staring at you all night. Oh my god, I'm gonna go poo now so I don't have to later. Mexico!
Alfonso got hooked on this odd game and thought, why not bring it back to Spain? So he did just that, building the first 2 paddle courts at the Marbella club on the Costa del Sol. Naturally, the fancy guys at the club loved it, including tennis legend Manolo Santana, who just happened to have 4 Grand Slam titles under his belt. Before long, clubs along the Costa del Sol were hopping on the paddle bandwagon, organizing tournaments and building their own courts. In 1975, Argentine millionaire Julio Menditéu stumbled across a paddle while living it up in Marbella and thought, I'll take that home with me. And Padel went viral in Argentina, where it got over 2 million licensed players and more than 10,000 courts. Argentine legends like Horacio Alvarez Clemente, Cacho Nicastro, and Diogenes de Urquiza helped the game become popular. And let's not forget the polo players who, after discovering Padel while gallivanting in Spain, brought it back home and became its unofficial cheerleaders, calling it a fun, easy game with cheap courts. At this point, Spain hasn't done too badly either. With over 20,000 courts and around 6 million active players, Padel became the second most popular sport in the country, just behind football. Not bad for a game that started with a guy trying to keep his balls out of his neighbor's garden. The real turning point for Padel in Spain came in the 1990s, when all of the bigwigs from politics, business, and journalism decided it was the sport to be seen playing. It wasn't long before Padel was all the rage, even pulling in tennis legends like Manolo Santana. The Spanish champ got hooked, started hosting tournaments on the Costa del Sol, and soon, Padel courts were popping up in clubs faster. In 1988, Cacho Nicastro took things up after founding the Argentine Padel Association. Nicastro, now head of the association, was keen to take the Padel global and organize the first ever matches between Spain and Argentina, marking another milestone in Padel's international journey. Meanwhile, the game didn't stop at Argentina either. It quickly spread to other countries, including Brazil, Uruguay, Chile, Paraguay, and beyond. Over in Europe, countries like Sweden, Italy, the UK, France, and Germany all jumped on it, building courts and forming federations. However, this was just the beginning. In 1991, the International Padel Federation was born, and by 1992, the first World Championships were held in Madrid and Seville. The big leagues had arrived. Just 2 years later, Spain's Sports Council officially recognized Padel as a sport, although they decided to change the spelling from P-A-D-D-L-E to P-A-D-E-L to make sure no one was killing the pronunciation. 1 year later, the Spanish Padel Association was officially formed and added to the Registry of Sports Associations. In short, Padel was no longer just a posh garden game. Fast forward to 2005 and we got the first ever Pro World Tour, the Padel Pro Tour. By 2013, they rebranded it as the World Padel Tour, which still moves around the globe today, holding events and dishing out trophies. Over time, the game's rules have had a bit of a makeover too. One of the big changes was the introduction of the underhand serve, which stopped big servers from completely dominating and made rallies last longer. Now, it's more about skill and less about whacking the ball into next week. They also tweaked the rules about playing off the walls. Players can now even run out of the court through the doors to hit the ball back in, adding a whole new layer of tactics that other racket sports just don't have. It's basically tennis, but with a bit of adventure. Paddle gear has also had a new design. It started out with basic wooden paddles, like something your nana would use in a game of beach cricket. These days, rackets are high-tech, made from fancy materials like carbon fiber and fiberglass, offering better control and more power. The balls, originally just repurposed tennis ones, are now specifically designed for paddle, giving just the right balance of bounce and speed. Meanwhile, paddle has seen some epic rivalries over the years. Spain and Argentina have pretty much been the sports powerhouses, producing some of the greatest players in paddle history. When it comes to winning though, Argentinian Fernando Ballesteros is in a league of his own. With over 200 trophies under his belt, 165 of them coming from his legendary partnership with Juan Martín Diaz, the guy's basically the Michael Jordan of paddle. Together, Bela and Diaz were top dogs in the world rankings for a mind-boggling 13 seasons straight. While the likes of Ballesteros, Diaz, Miras, and Lima dominated during the era when paddle was more about strategy and finesse, a new breed of supercharged athletes has stormed the scene, playing at lightning speed and hitting the ball like they're trying to break the sound barrier. Leading this new wave of high-octane paddle are Juan Lebron and Alejandro Galán.
This is a high growth opportunity for them. But there's also the other aspect of it, of individuals that play tennis potentially, or other celebrities, athletes that just want to be involved in a growing game, that are looking at paddle as another growth opportunity for them, for their brand, and also to inspire the next generation.
Their partnership brought them 33 trophies and 4 seasons at the top of the rankings, with a style that's all about big hits and fast moves. And if that wasn't enough, Agustin Tapia and Arturo Coelho are yet another big duo currently dominating the men's circuit and carrying on the tradition of smash and dash paddle. As new players take up the racket and the sport expands to new territories, paddle's rich history is about to set the stage for even greater achievements to come.
Obviously, you have COVID as an inflection point where people were working from home and wanted to socialize, have fun, compete a little bit. So that's where a sport like paddle can come into play quite easily. I think we're at an early stage when it comes to the growth of paddle in the UK, the US, some of these emerging markets. I think you're starting to see this post-COVID boom of wanting to socialize, wanting to exercise in a way that isn't necessarily just going to the gym anymore.
Today, the sport has officially conquered many countries and is only set to take over the whole world. However, if you like this video and paddle in general, there's a good possibility you'd want to watch a video about pickleball, its history and current state, so give it a watch too.